Squire! Fetch my Vorpal helmet!
Sir, I don't think that word means what you think it means.
All right, folks, we're back at the Vorpal Helmet channel, and we are having our 6 adventurers approaching a ruined Moathouse. This is the ruined Moathouse, not too far from the village of Hamlet, and we're using the Dungeon Fantasy Roleplaying Game rules, powered by GURPS, for this classic D&D adventure. Now, as our adventurers approach the Moathouse, the GM rolls a blind perception check for all of them to determine whether or not they detect anything that is amiss here. So as they get close to this pond, the GM rolls blind perception check, and the GM knows that all of them except for Raj made their perception checks, and Thulnar Dawnshield made his by 3. That was the best roll. The GM also secretly rolls stealth checks for anything that is lurking in the pond. And as it turns out, and what the adventurers will quickly see, is that there are, in fact, a number of large and huge frogs that are lurking in that pond. And while they were trying to be stealthy, one of them only made its stealth check by 1. So when there's a quick contest to determine whether or not one or both sides are surprised, the people being stealthy or the enemies being stealthy roll stealth, and you take the worst stealth roll, and then you compare that to the best perception roll from the adventurers. And in this case, the adventurers prevail. So, combat will begin. Thulnar tells people, "Hey, I think there's something over in that pond." They all turn to look, and that is when combat begins, when they notice these frogs jumping out of the pond to come get them. So, without further ado, we're going to start that combat. All right, and combat begins. So, this first frog over here is going to jump out at, the closest target appears to be Yesunge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yards away. So the frog jumps out at Yesunge. And is the frog going to move and attack or just move? Probably just going to move. Let's see here. Yeah, probably not going to go for the slam. We'll instead just jump. And these frogs have super jump, so they can jump pretty far. And, we'll just jump right at Yesunge for now. Yeah, as it turns out, these frogs can all jump 12 yards. So, that's what that frog does. We will go to the next combatant. Another large frog. That one will jump 12 yards here. And that 12 yards is going to take him, he'll jump right up next to Frank Newcastle. In Foundry, you can set the maneuvers. You'll see there's let's zoom in a little bit here. See, there's a little maneuver icon there. That stands for move, so forth and so on. Everyone who hasn't gone yet has the do nothing maneuver listed. All right. Next frog will jump right for Carlotta Delmonico because she seems to be in range there. She's within range, so jumps there. All right. Next frog will presumably jump towards, let's have that frog jump towards Raj, I think. Can the frog make it to Raj? Absolutely. So that frog will jump to Raj. Pretty frightening for our delvers, I would imagine. These frogs are the size of large dogs. The other frogs that they can see in the pond that haven't gone yet are the size of ponies. So, yeah, no problem. All right, Yesunge is up. Yesunge was moving with an arrow knocked. He's going to take a step back. And he's going to shoot this frog right here that he is targeting. Now, when we look at, well, let's do it from over here. Look at Yesunge's sheet. For some reason, his sheet is always a little bigger than others. So we'll say that he had a broadhead arrow knocked. And his range is not very far, so he's just going to shoot. So he will set his maneuver. So he's got the attack maneuver enabled. There we go. All right, so he rolled a 12. So the frog now has to defend. The frog can only take a dodge action. So let's see whether or not the frog defends. Frog rolls and misses it by 3. So Yesunge will do damage to that frog. So he'll just click here, longbow, shoot broadhead. 1 dice plus 3 damage to the frog. That's pretty bad. All right, so we'll apply damage to the frog. In this particular case, it goes to the torso. Impaling damage does double damage after going past DR. As it turns out, this large frog has no damage reduction, has no DR, so he's going to take a total of 12 injury. So that's going to result in shock to that frog, and it's a major wound. The frog is going to have to make a health roll to avoid knockdown and stunning. And the frog does manage to do so, but is badly injured. Next up is Huge Frog number 2. So, Huge Frog number 2 is going to jump towards, let's see, who's 12 yards away. Looks like we can get right up to Thulnar. And that's what he'll do. He's going to jump right up next to Thulnar. And that should be pretty scary for him. All right. And that would be the move action for that frog. Next up is Huge Frog number 1, who will also take the move action. Let's see how far he can go. Can he reach the Elven Wizard? He, she, no, not quite. I guess this frog will also try to attack Yesunge. Why not? That seems fun. So the frog will jump right to there. That looks like fun for Yesunge. All right. So our next Delver is up. It's Raj Luos. So Raj has a big frog right in front of him, and it probably makes sense for him to try to shank that frog. So he will do that. In this particular case, he is a weapon master, so he will take a -3 penalty and try to stab this frog twice and then take a step back. So what you can do here is do -3, rapid strike, weapon master, enter. We will click on the little magnet icon to make that persistent. We'll target the frog, and he'll make an attack. All right. First attack. Potential hit. Second attack is a miss. All right. Now we have our frog. So our frog now has to defend against Raj's attack. This frog will try to dodge. And he misses by 1, as the case may be. The Game Master tells the Delvers here. We can zoom in a little bit more now that all the combatants are right next to each other. So, since it was a hit, Roger's going to roll his damage. I guess we did it as a cut instead of a thrust. That's fine. We'll just do it that way. Not so great. All right, would have been better as a thrust. Thrusting does double damage, or once it gets past DR, it does the appropriate injury. There's a wounding multiplier. In this case, the wounding multiplier is 1.5. For impaling to the torso and other parts, it's 2 times. In this case, it's going to do a maximum of 4 injury. So this frog is going to take some shock penalties because it's been hit. It doesn't have high pain threshold, and it's going to be injured. That was Raj's turn. Oh, and he's going to back up, thinking that discretion is the better part of valor. Carlotta Delmonico has a frog in front of her. So she'll target that frog. And she will attempt to crush it with her Morningstar. And one day I will remember to change the maneuver icon. There we go. She'll try to crush it with her Morningstar. Here we go. Rolling against a 13. And she succeeds. So, can this frog defend? Rolls against a 9. Just made it. And because it's a dodge, that works. Important things about Morningstars, as we can see here. -4 to parry, -2 to block. Those are difficult, but for dodging, not a problem. And this frog manages to do it. All right. Foxfire has a frog very close to her. That is making her uncomfortable, and she has no desire to be part of any of that. So, what's her best move here? She can cast a number of spells. However, those spells, if she casts a fireball, for example, maybe we can open up her character sheet. There we go. If she casts a fireball, for example, that will cast it, and then she can't throw it until the next turn. Same thing with explosive fireball, ignite fire, lightning, so forth and so on. So maybe what she'll do here, actually, a little bit atypical for a wizard, but I think what she'll do is just try to swing her staff at this frog. She can swing that at a reach 2. Let's try to do that. So we'll give her the attack maneuver, and she will swing the staff. And she potentially succeeds. So we're going to have to see if this frog can defend. And the frog fails to defend, and she hits it. So she'll do 1 dice plus 2 crushing damage. Oh, a measly 3. And sadly, crushing damage has no wounding modifier. So she does 3 damage to the frog. The frog is shocked. I believe. There we go. And we'll apply damage to the frog. So, as you can see from these modifiers, not quite sure why that frog doesn't have a move maneuver on him. Let's fix that. All right. But as you can see here, if we remove the targeting icon. If we can remove the targeting icon, we can see that he's got -3 shock penalties. And that is Foxfire's turn. All right. Well, Frank has a number of targets available to him and is kind of getting surrounded. So I think his best move, or he thinks his best move, is to try to slash at this frog right here and then try to put himself in a better position so he can defend against the pony-sized frog. First things first, though, let's have Frank attack that frog. And we're going to change his sheet. We'll use the prettier sheets, as the case may be. So he's got a broadsword, swing or cut. He will try to thrust the broadsword into this frog, and he will take the attack action. Alrighty then. Thrust, broadsword. Why does it say invalid? Oh, because we selected the wrong thing there. All right. Let's try to do it right this time. Here we go. All right, it's a potential hit. The frog needs to defend. Can the frog defend? We'll see. The frog attempts to dodge, and he does. All right, so Frank actually probably is going to move where? He has one step. Well, if he moves down there, he's going to have his back to one of the frogs. But there's a large frog that is menacing Thulnar, and he probably should do that. So he'll move. He'll face that way. He'll have his back to this frog here and potentially open to a flank shot from this frog. Such is life. Oops. We'll keep him facing the right way. This frog is off by a tad. Not a tadpole. All right. We now have Thulnar Dawnshield. What will Thulnar do? He has a number of options. He might cast some spells. But we think perhaps instead he will be brave and attack with his mace. That's at least a possibility. He could cast armor. He could cast might to make himself stronger. But I think he's just going to first start off with attacking. So he will target this huge frog. He will take the attack action, and he's going to attack with his mace, the dwarven mace. That should not be a 6. He's going to attack here with that dwarven mace. There we go. It's a 12. Actually, I should point out, we forgot to make some modifications here, so we're going to have to pay attention next time. So as we can see up here, these frogs have size modifier +1. That means that they are +1 to hit. The other frogs have -1 for their size modifier. So actually, I don't think anybody made or missed their attack rolls exactly. But if they had, that would have made a difference. So we'll have to remember that for the future. Something smaller, -1 size modifier, the size of a large dog, a little bit harder to hit. Something as big as a pony, this huge frog, easier to hit. In any event, Thulnar potentially hits this huge frog. Can the huge frog dodge? And the huge frog does not. So Thulnar will do some damage to this large frog. Huge frog, indeed, actually. So let's do that damage. 1 dice 6 plus 2. He does 4 damage. And as it turns out, this frog has a DR of 1. So he'll take 3 injury. We'll also take a shock penalty because the frog does not have high pain threshold. And that will be Thulnar's turn. Well, actually, Thulnar will back up. He doesn't need to be that close to this frog. And hopefully Frank Newcastle will handle that. So that's round 1 of sorts. Let's move on to the next turn.